Officer Jake Morrison's K9 partner, Rex, wasn't like other police dogs. The massive German Shepherd had a stare that could freeze criminals in their tracks and a bark that echoed through Denver's streets like thunder. Standing at 95 pounds of pure muscle and instinct, Rex was the kind of dog that made grown men take a step back. His dark, intelligent eyes missed nothing. Not a suspicious movement in a crowd, not a hidden package in an alleyway, not a trace of narcotics concealed in the most clever hiding spots. After 3 years on the force together, Rex had helped capture 12 suspects and found 3 missing persons. His success rate was legendary in the Denver Police Department. Other officers would joke that Rex was more cop than canine, that he probably filed his own reports if he could hold a pen. But Jake knew the truth was more complex. Rex was brilliant at his job, perhaps too brilliant. The dog had channeled every ounce of his being into police work, leaving no room for anything else. The problem became obvious during community events. "Can I pet your dog?" children would ask, their eyes wide with excitement, inching forward with outstretched hands. Jake would smile and nod, but his stomach would tighten with anticipation of what came next. Rex would stand there, rigid as a statue, tail motionless, ears forward in alert position, staring at the approaching child with the same intensity he'd use on a suspect. The professional demeanor never wavered, never softened. There was no tail wag, no play bow, no warmth in those dark eyes. Just cold assessment. "He's all business," Jake would explain apologetically as disappointed children walked away, their parents offering understanding smiles that didn't quite hide their relief at leaving the intimidating animal behind. Some kids would manage a quick pat on Rex's head before scurrying away. Others would change their minds entirely, sensing something in Rex's bearing that said, "I am not a pet." Jake had tried everything. He'd brought tennis balls to events. Rex ignored them unless they were part of a training exercise. He'd attempted to socialize Rex with therapy dog groups. Rex had sat apart from the other dogs, watching them play with an expression that seemed almost judgmental. He'd even consulted with the department's K9 trainer, a weathered veteran named Martinez who'd worked with police dogs for 23 years. "Some dogs compartmentalize," Martinez had explained, scratching his gray beard thoughtfully. "Rex sees himself as a working dog, period. It's not that he doesn't like people or kids. He just doesn't understand how to be anything other than what he is. A soldier, a protector, a professional." "Can we change that?" Jake had asked hopefully. Martinez had shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not. Some dogs are just wired differently. Rex is exceptional at his job because he's single-minded about it. You start messing with that, you might lose what makes him special." So Jake had accepted it. Rex was his partner in every way that mattered: loyal, brave, intelligent, and utterly dependable in dangerous situations. If the dog couldn't be a friendly face at community barbecues, so be it. There were other K9 units with softer, more sociable dogs for those duties. On this humid June morning at Riverside Park, Jake expected nothing different. The community outreach event had been planned for weeks. The Denver Police Department took these gatherings seriously, especially in neighborhoods where trust between law enforcement and residents had frayed. Riverside Park sat in a diverse, working-class area where many families had complicated relationships with police. The department hoped that bringing officers out in a relaxed, non-enforcement setting might build bridges. Jake had woken at 5:30 that morning, as he always did. He'd gone for his daily run, 6 miles through his neighborhood while the city still slept. Then he'd driven to the K9 facility, where Rex waited in his kennel with the same alert posture he maintained whether it was dawn or midnight. The dog never seemed to truly relax. "Morning, partner," Jake had greeted him, opening the kennel door. Rex had emerged with purpose, no sleepy stretching or yawning like a normal dog might do, just immediate readiness. They'd run drills for an hour, search patterns, obedience commands, scenario training. Rex had performed flawlessly, as he always did. Then Jake had loaded him into the specially equipped patrol SUV, and they'd headed to Riverside Park. Now, at 10:15 in the morning, the temperature was already climbing toward 85 degrees. Jake could feel sweat forming under his uniform as he stood in the K9 demonstration area they'd set up near the park's central pavilion. Other officers manned booths about bike safety, stranger danger, and emergency preparedness. A small stage had been erected for the chief's welcome speech at noon. Families were starting to arrive, parents pushing strollers, kids racing ahead toward the playground equipment, teenagers clustering in groups with their phones out. The smell of grilling hamburgers drifted from the food tent. A local radio station had set up speakers, playing family-friendly pop music that competed with the general cacophony of a Saturday in the park. Rex sat at Jake's left side in perfect heel position, surveying the scene with tactical precision. His ears swiveled toward every new sound. His nose worked constantly, processing the thousands of scents that humans couldn't detect. To anyone watching, Rex looked magnificent, a poster image of what a police dog should be. But Jake could feel the invisible wall around his partner. Rex wasn't engaging with the environment, he was monitoring it, assessing threats, maintaining perimeter security, being a working dog. Several families had already approached, and the interactions had gone exactly as Jake predicted. Brief, awkward, professional. Rex tolerated petting the way he might tolerate a vet examination, necessary but not enjoyable. The children sensed it and didn't linger. Maybe today will be different, Jake muttered to himself, though he didn't believe it. He checked his watch. 6 hours and 45 minutes until they could go home. He had no idea that in less than 30 minutes, everything he thought he knew about his partner would be proven wrong. He had no idea that a 3-year-old girl was about to teach them both what it meant to truly connect. The park bustled with weekend energy, children shrieking on swings, vendors calling out, music playing from portable speakers. Yet 3-year-old Emma Chen existed in complete silence. Born with autism, Emma had never spoken a single word. Not mama, not dada, nothing. Her mother Sarah had spent countless hours in therapy sessions, trying sign language, picture cards, and music therapy. Emma would sit motionless, staring blankly, trapped in her own world. Sarah Chen adjusted her daughter's sun hat for the 3rd time in as many minutes, though Emma didn't seem to notice or care. The little girl sat limply in her stroller, clutching a worn stuffed dog that had once been white but was now gray from constant handling. Emma's eyes stared past the colorful chaos of Riverside Park, focused on nothing and everything at once. It was a look Sarah knew intimately, the look that said her daughter was present in body, but absent in every other way that mattered. 3 years, 3 long years of silence. Sarah remembered the day Emma was born with painful clarity. The delivery had been textbook perfect. Emma had emerged with a healthy cry, pink and perfect, her tiny fingers grasping at the air. 10 fingers, 10 toes, absolutely beautiful, the doctor had announced. Sarah and her husband David had cried tears of joy, never imagining that Emma's birth cry would be one of the last sounds their daughter would make for years. The first year had been confusing. Emma hit some developmental milestones. She could sit up, she could crawl, she could feed herself finger foods. But she never babbled. Not the mama and dada sounds that parenting books promised would come around 6 months. Not the experimental sounds that Bobby supposedly made while learning to control their voices. Just silence, punctuated occasionally by crying when she was hungry or uncomfortable. Some Bobbies are just quiet, their pediatrician had assured them at the 9-month checkup. Give it time. But time had not been kind. By 18 months, when most toddlers were speaking in simple sentences, Emma still hadn't said a single word. She didn't point at things she wanted. She didn't make eye contact. She didn't respond to her name being called. She existed in a bubble that Sarah couldn't penetrate no matter how hard she tried. The diagnosis came just after Emma's 2nd birthday. Autism spectrum disorder, nonverbal, with significant social communication challenges. Sarah had sat in the neurologist's office, listening to words that felt like hammering nails into a coffin. Early intervention is crucial, the doctor had explained gently. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy. There are many approaches we can try. And they had tried everything. Emma had attended speech therapy 3 times a week with Mrs. Rodriguez, a patient woman who'd worked with nonverbal children for 15 years. She'd used sign language, picture exchange systems, and electronic communication devices. Emma had learned to use some picture cards to indicate basic needs: hungry, thirsty, bathroom, but never with real engagement. Just mechanical responses, like a robot programmed to perform specific tasks. Occupational therapy addressed Emma's sensory issues. She couldn't tolerate certain textures, loud noises sent her into meltdowns, and she seemed disconnected from her own body. The therapist had recommended weighted blankets, sensory bins, and carefully controlled environments. Behavioral therapy focused on building basic life skills and reducing problematic behaviors. Emma had learned to dress herself with assistance and to sit at a table during meals. Small victories that Sarah celebrated with tears because they represented months of exhausting work. But through it all, Emma never spoke, never initiated interaction, never showed interest in other children or animals or toys beyond her stuffed dog. She lived in her silent world, unreachable despite every expert, every therapy, every desperate attempt Sarah made to connect with her daughter. David had left 6 months ago. "I can't do this anymore," he'd said, his voice breaking. "I love her, but I can't watch her disappear further every day. I feel like I'm mourning a child who's still alive." Sarah had been too exhausted to fight. She'd signed the divorce papers and watched him pack, feeling nothing but numbness. Now it was just Sarah and Emma against the world. Financial stress had become crushing. Emma's therapies cost thousands monthly, even with insurance. Sarah had quit her job as a marketing coordinator because Emma couldn't attend regular daycare. Her needs were too specialized. They lived on David's child support and Sarah's freelance work done during Emma's sleeping hours. She was perpetually exhausted, running on coffee and desperate hope that tomorrow might bring a breakthrough. Today, Sarah had brought Emma to the park as a last-ditch effort. "Maybe something new will spark something," Emma's therapist had suggested during their last session. Environmental enrichment can sometimes create unexpected opportunities for engagement. Don't give up. Don't give up. Sarah heard that phrase constantly, from therapists, from well-meaning friends, from online support groups for parents of autistic children. Don't give up. Keep trying. Stay positive. Celebrate small victories. But Sarah was so tired of small victories. She wanted a big one. She wanted her daughter to look at her, really look at her and see her. She wanted to hear Emma's voice say, "Mommy," just once. Just one single time before Sarah lost her mind completely. Emma clutched her worn, stuffed dog mechanically, her eyes glazed and distant, unaware of the life surrounding her. The stuffed animal had been a gift from Sarah's mother before she'd passed away 2 years ago. "For my grandbaby," she'd written on the card. Emma had latched onto it immediately, the only object she'd ever shown consistent attachment to. The dog went everywhere. Bath time, bedtime, therapy sessions, doctor's appointments. Emma's fingers worried the fabric constantly, rubbing the same spot until the stuffing showed through. Sarah watched other families in the park. A father pushed his laughing daughter on a swing. 2 boys kicked a soccer ball back and forth, shouting strategy to each other. A mother sat on a blanket reading a story to her attentive toddler who asked questions after every page. Normal families doing normal things. Sarah felt the familiar ache of grief. She grieved for the mother-daughter relationship she'd imagined during pregnancy. The tea parties and playground adventures, the bedtime stories and whispered secrets, the first day of school photos and dance recitals, all the moments that seemed impossible now. She was ready to leave. Emma showed no interest in anything as usual when they passed the K9 demonstration area. Sarah barely glanced at it, focused on steering the stroller toward the parking lot. Another failed outing, another day of silence. Then Emma moved. It was so sudden that Sarah almost didn't register it. Emma's body went rigid in the stroller. Her small frame, usually limp and passive, became tense and alert. Sarah looked down in alarm, thinking something was wrong, maybe the beginning of one of Emma's sensory meltdowns. But Emma's eyes had locked onto something across the pathway with a laser-like intensity that Sarah had never witnessed in her daughter's entire life. The glazed, distant look vanished, replaced by focus, awareness, and something else Sarah couldn't quite identify. Recognition, interest, desire. Emma's fingers slowly unclenched from the stuffed dog. Sarah watched in disbelief as her daughter's most precious possession fell to the stroller seat, forgotten. Emma never let go of that dog. Never. Not voluntarily. Then Emma did something she had never done before. She stood up in the stroller, her small legs pushing against the restraints. Her hands reached toward the buckle with purpose, not random movement, but intentional action driven by something Sarah had never seen in her daughter. Emma wanted something, and whatever it was, it had just shattered 3 years of disconnection in a single moment. Sarah Chen's hands trembled as she fumbled with the stroller buckle. Emma was pushing against the straps with an urgency that bordered on frantic, her small body straining forward with single-minded determination. In 3 years, Sarah had never seen her daughter exhibit such purposeful behavior. Emma didn't reach for things. She didn't show preferences. She didn't demonstrate desire. Until now. "Emma, sweetie, hold on," Sarah managed, her voice shaking as she unclipped the safety harness. The moment the buckle released, Emma practically launched herself out of the stroller. Her small legs, usually so uncoordinated and hesitant, found solid ground. She took one step forward, then another, moving toward something across the pathway with a determination that made Sarah's heart hammer against her ribs. Sarah grabbed the stroller handle for support, her knees suddenly weak. "Emma, wait!" But her daughter couldn't hear her, or wouldn't. Emma had never walked toward anything before with such purpose. She had to be led everywhere, her hand in Sarah's, moving through life like a ghost being pulled along by invisible strings. But now Emma was walking toward something. Everything about her posture had changed. Her shoulders were back, her head held high, her eyes fixed on a target that commanded her complete attention. Sarah followed her daughter's gaze and finally saw what had caused this unprecedented transformation. A police dog. Across the pathway, near a pop-up tent with a K9 unit banner, stood a massive German Shepherd beside a uniformed officer. The dog was sitting at attention, professional and imposing, exactly the kind of animal that most 3-year-olds would approach with caution, if at all. But Emma wasn't most 3-year-olds, and the way she was looking at that dog made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. Emma's eyes, those beautiful dark eyes that usually stared through people and things without really seeing them, were alive with an intensity Sarah had never witnessed. It was as if every neuron in her daughter's brain had suddenly fired at once, creating a connection, a bridge, a pathway that had never existed before. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, abandoning the stroller and hurrying after Emma. Her daughter was moving faster now, not quite running but close to it, her small feet padding across the concrete with surprising speed and coordination. Other parkgoers noticed. A jogger slowed, watching the tiny girl beeline toward the police display. A group of teenagers paused their conversation, phones lowering as they observed the scene unfolding. An elderly man on a bench leaned forward, squinting in the bright sunlight. There was something magnetic about Emma's movement, something that drew the eye and held it. Perhaps it was the contrast between her small size and her overwhelming determination. Perhaps it was the laser focus visible in her posture. Or perhaps some primal part of human consciousness recognized that they were witnessing something significant, even if they couldn't articulate what. Emma was 20 feet away from the dog now, 15, 10. Officer Jake Morrison had been explaining the basics of narcotics detection to a middle-aged couple when he noticed the approaching child. His trained eye immediately assessed the situation. A small girl, approximately 3 years old, moving toward Rex without the usual hesitation children displayed. A panicked-looking woman hurrying behind her, clearly the mother. Jake's body automatically shifted into a protective stance. Rex was well-trained and had never bitten anyone, but he was also not a family pet. The dog had specific boundaries, and small children moving quickly into his space could trigger unpredictable responses. Jake had seen it before. A child would approach too fast, Rex would tense, and the child would sense the dog's discomfort and either freeze or cry. "Rex, stay," Jake commanded quietly, his voice firm but calm. The German Shepherd remained in his sitting position, but Jake could see the subtle changes in his partner's body language. Rex's ears had swiveled forward, focusing on the approaching child. His weight had shifted slightly, preparing for whatever might come next. Jake stepped forward slightly, ready to intercept if necessary. "Miss, maybe we should," he began, directing his words toward the breathless mother who had nearly caught up to the little girl. But he didn't finish the sentence. Because in that moment, Emma came to a stop directly in front of Rex, and something extraordinary happened. The park seemed to quiet. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe Jake's perception simply narrowed until the only thing that existed was the small girl and the large dog, facing each other in a moment that felt suspended outside of normal time. Emma stared at Rex. Rex stared at Emma. It wasn't a casual glance. It wasn't the brief, skittering eye contact that most people made with animals before looking away. This was a gaze, deep, penetrating, and mutual. Emma looked into Rex's dark eyes with the kind of focus that suggested she was seeing something profound, something essential, something that existed beneath the surface of ordinary reality. And Rex, the all-business police dog who never softened for anyone, looked back. Jake had worked with Rex for 3 years. He knew every subtle variation in his partner's expressions, every microscopic shift in mood or attention. He could read Rex the way a musician reads sheet music, intuitively, immediately, completely. What he saw now in Rex's eyes made his breath catch. Recognition. Not the recognition of a familiar person or a known threat. Something deeper. Something that transcended the categories Jake understood. It was as if Rex and this tiny, silent girl were communicating on a wavelength that existed outside of human perception. Sarah finally reached them, her hand extended to pull Emma back, to apologize, to explain. "I'm so sorry, she's never done anything like this before, she doesn't usually." The words died in her throat as Emma raised her small hands. Jake tensed, ready to give a command, ready to pull Rex back if needed. The couple he'd been talking to had gone silent, watching. More people were pausing now, drawn by the invisible theater of this encounter. Emma's hands moved slowly, deliberately, reaching upward toward Rex's massive head. The German Shepherd remained absolutely still, only his eyes tracking the movement of those small fingers. Jake opened his mouth to intervene, to protect both the child and his partner from what could become a dangerous situation. Rex wasn't aggressive, but he was unpredictable around children, and hands reaching toward a police dog's face violated every safety protocol Jake had ever learned. But something made him hesitate. Something in the quality of the moment, the strange, crystalline perfection of it, made him hold his tongue and simply watch. Emma's hands made contact with Rex's face, one palm on each side of his broad head, fingers spreading gently across his dark fur. She held the dog's gaze with an intensity that seemed impossible for a 3-year-old. Her small body leaned forward slightly, closing the distance between them. And then she opened her mouth. Time seemed to fragment into crystalline shards, each microsecond stretching into eternity. Sarah Chen's heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat, in her fingertips, in her temples. Her daughter, her silent, unreachable daughter, stood with both small hands cradling the massive police dog's face, staring into his eyes with an intensity that defied explanation. Officer Jake Morrison's hand hovered near his radio, every muscle in his body coiled tight. Rex's ears were fully forward, his entire being focused on the tiny human touching him. Jake had seen his partner face down armed suspects with less intensity than he was showing this 3-year-old girl. This could go catastrophically wrong in a heartbeat. One wrong move, one sudden sound, one. Emma's lips parted. Her small chest rose with an intake of breath that seemed to pull air from the entire park. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, a sob already building in her chest even though nothing had happened yet. But a mother knows. Some primitive instinct buried deep in Sarah's DNA was screaming that something monumental was about to occur. Rex went absolutely still. Not the trained stillness of a working dog holding position, but something else entirely. A held breath, an anticipation. The massive German Shepherd, 95 pounds of muscle and instinct and professional training, became as motionless as a statue, as if the entire universe had frozen to witness this single moment. The teenagers who had been watching pulled out their phones, sensing something worth capturing. The elderly man on the bench leaned so far forward he nearly toppled. A mother pushing a stroller stopped mid-step. A jogger paused, one foot still raised. Even the birds seemed to quiet in the trees above. Emma's lips moved, forming a shape they had never formed before. Her vocal cords, silent for 3 years except for crying, prepared to do something they had been biologically designed for but had never accomplished. Create speech. Doggy. The word emerged clear as a bell, perfect in its simplicity, devastating in its significance. One single word that shattered 3 years of silence like a hammer through glass. Sarah's legs buckled. She collapsed to her knees on the concrete pathway, her hands still covering her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. A sound escaped her, half sob, half gasp, a noise of pure, overwhelming emotion that contained every therapy session, every sleepless night, every desperate prayer, every moment of grief and hope and exhaustion compressed into a single exhalation. "Oh my God," she choked out. "Oh my God, Emma baby, you spoke. Jake's hand dropped from his radio, hanging limply at his side. Goosebumps erupted across his entire body, racing up his arms and down his spine. His eyes went wide, then filled with tears so quickly it startled him. He'd been a police officer for 8 years. He'd seen shootings, accidents, tragedies, and triumphs. He'd maintained his composure through situations that would break most people. But this undid him completely. "Did she just," he started, his voice cracking. He couldn't finish the sentence. His throat had closed up. Emma seemed unaware of the earthquake her single word had caused. Her focus remained entirely on Rex, her small hands still cradling his face. And then she spoke again. "Doggy," she repeated, the word emerging with slightly more confidence. Her voice was small and high-pitched, exactly as a 3-year-old's voice should sound, and it was the most beautiful sound Sarah had ever heard. Rex did something Jake had never witnessed in their 3 years as partners. The German Shepherd, who maintained rigid professionalism in every situation, who treated community events like tactical operations, who had never once broken character or shown softness toward a child, gently lowered himself to the ground. Not a commanded down, not a tactical crouch, a willing, deliberate descent that brought his head level with Emma's. And his tail that only wagged during training exercises when he successfully completed tasks, began to move. Slowly at first, then with increasing enthusiasm, sweeping back and forth across the concrete in wide arcs. "Holy," Jake breathed, "Rex, what are you?" But Rex wasn't listening to his handler. For perhaps the first time in his career, the police dog had made his own decision, operating on an instinct that superseded training, duty, and protocol. Emma sat down beside Rex, never breaking eye contact with him. Her small body settled naturally against his larger form, and her fingers, those fingers that usually performed only repetitive, stimming movements, began running through Rex's dark fur with wonder and purpose. "Nice doggy," Emma whispered, the words tentative but deliberate, soft. Sarah crawled forward on her knees, not trusting her legs to support her. Tears poured down her face unchecked, dripping off her chin onto her shirt. "Emma, sweetie, yes, yes, baby, that's a doggy, a nice doggy." The couple Jake had been talking to stood frozen, the wife clutching her husband's arm with white knuckles. "Did you see that?" she whispered. "That child just—" "I saw it," her husband replied, his own voice thick with emotion. "I saw it." More people were gathering now, drawn by Sarah's sobs and the palpable energy of the moment. A small crowd formed at a respectful distance, phones out, everyone sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary. One of the teenagers who'd been recording spoke to his friend in an awed whisper. "Dude, did that kid not talk before? Like, was that her first word?" "I think so, man. Look at the mom. That's not normal crying, that's like a miracle or something." Jake crouched down beside the scene, his professional composure completely shattered. He keyed his radio with a shaking hand. "Morrison to command." "Go ahead, Morrison," the dispatcher responded, her voice crisp and routine. I need Sergeant Williams to come to my location at the K9 display and tell him to bring tissues. Something's happened. Something," his voice cracked again. "Something incredible." There was a pause. "Are you all right, Morrison? Do you need medical?" "Negative, no medical, just send Williams and tell him not to rush. This moment needs to breathe." Emma leaned her head against Rex's neck, her small arms wrapping as far around him as they could reach. "Good doggy," she murmured into his fur. "My doggy." Rex's tail continued its steady sweep, and he turned his head slightly to nose gently at Emma's hair. The legendary police dog, the intimidating K9 who had helped capture dangerous criminals and had never shown softness to anyone, was cuddling a 3-year-old child with a tenderness that defied everything Jake thought he knew about his partner. Sarah finally made it to Emma's side, her hands hovering, wanting to touch her daughter but afraid to break whatever spell had been cast. "Emma," she managed through her tears. "Emma, can you say it again? Can you say doggy again?" Emma looked up at her mother, actually looked at her, making direct eye contact for one of the few times in her life. A small smile curved her lips. "Doggy," she said clearly, then looked back at Rex. "Rex doggy." The word Rex shouldn't have been possible. Emma had never been told the dog's name. She couldn't read the nameplate on his vest, but somehow in that moment of connection she knew. And Rex, understanding something profound that transcended human language or training or logic, pressed closer to the small girl and continued to wag his tail. The moment stretched on, suspended in amber, perfect and impossible and real. Everything had changed. For the next 20 minutes, the world outside the small circle of concrete where Emma and Rex existed ceased to matter. Sarah knelt beside her daughter, tears streaming continuously, watching a miracle unfold in real time. She'd stopped trying to make sense of it. Logic had no place here. This was something beyond understanding, something that existed in the realm of magic and grace and answered prayers. Emma's verbal dam, silent for 3 years, had broken completely. "Soft doggy," she murmured, her small fingers running through Rex's fur with increasing confidence. "Black doggy, big doggy." Each word was a revelation, a gift, an impossibility made real. Rex remained on the ground, his massive body curved protectively around Emma's small form. His tail hadn't stopped wagging, long, sweeping arcs that spoke of pure contentment. His eyes, usually so alert and tactical, had softened into something Jake had never seen before. The dog looked peaceful, happy, complete. Jake stood nearby, his radio clutched forgotten in his hand, tears still wet on his cheeks. He'd stopped trying to hide them. Several other officers had arrived, drawn by his cryptic radio call and the growing crowd. They stood in a loose semicircle, watching in reverent silence. Sergeant Williams, a 20-year veteran with a reputation for unflappable stoicism, was openly weeping. "I've got 3 kids of my own," he whispered to Jake. "Never seen anything like this. Never even imagined anything like this." Officer Chen, no relation to Emma's family, had her hand over her heart, her own eyes glistening. "My nephew is autistic, non-verbal. My sister would give anything for a moment like this." The crowd had grown to nearly 50 people, all maintaining a respectful distance but unable to look away. Phones were raised, recording, but the atmosphere wasn't voyeuristic. It felt sacred somehow. People were witnessing something profound, and they knew it. An elderly woman in a floral dress stood with her hands clasped in front of her chest. "That's the hand of God," she said quietly to no one in particular. "Right there. That's what grace looks like." Emma continued her exploration of Rex, her hands moving to his ears, his snout, his paws. With each touch, she narrated in her small, newly discovered voice. Ear, nose, paw. Simple words, but each one landed like a thunderclap in Sarah's heart. "She's never done this," Sarah managed to explain to Jake, her voice raw from crying. 3 years of therapy, 3 years of specialists and interventions and programs. She's never made eye contact this long, never initiated touch, never ever spoken." She broke down again, her shoulders shaking. "I was starting to accept that I might never hear her voice, that I might never really know my own daughter." Jake crouched down, his voice gentle. "What's her name?" Emma Chen. She's 3 years and 4 months old, diagnosed with autism at 22 months. The neurologist said." Sarah's voice caught. "The neurologist said her prognosis for verbal communication was poor, that we should focus on alternative communication methods. I never gave up hope, but I was starting to believe." "Don't," Jake interrupted softly. "Don't say what you were starting to believe, because look at her now." They both turned to watch Emma, who had now progressed to full sentences, short and simple, but sentences nonetheless. "I like the doggy," Emma said, looking up at Sarah with clear, focused eyes. "The doggy is nice." Sarah's hands flew to her mouth again, fresh sobs overtaking her. "Yes, baby. Yes, the doggy is very nice. Can you tell Mommy what else you like about the doggy?" Emma considered this, her small face scrunched in concentration, an expression of active thinking that Sarah had rarely seen. "The doggy is warm and soft and black." She paused, then added with growing excitement, "The doggy likes Emma." It was the first time in her life that Emma had referred to herself by name. The first time she demonstrated understanding that another being had feelings toward her. The first time she'd expressed anything resembling social awareness. Jake's radio crackled. "Morrison, this is command. We're getting reports of a situation at your location. Social media posts are blowing up. What's going on?" Jake keyed the radio, his voice still thick with emotion. "Command, there's no situation. There's a miracle. A 3-year-old nonverbal autistic child just spoke her first words to Rex, and she hasn't stopped talking since." There was a long pause. "Say again, Morrison." "You heard me right. Rex is doing therapy dog work right now, completely of his own accord. The child is verbal, engaged, making eye contact, forming sentences. I've never seen anything like it. Rex has never behaved like this. It's..." He looked at Emma, then at his partner, then back at the growing crowd. "It's changing everything." Another pause then. "Captain wants to know if you need support. Media might be incoming." "Let them come," Jake replied. "The world needs to see this." Emma had moved on to asking questions now, actual questions that demonstrated curiosity and engagement with her environment. What Rex eat? Where Rex live? Rex have mommy? Sarah answered each question through her tears, marveling at her daughter's sudden linguistic explosion. 3 years of silence, and now Emma was asking about concepts she'd never shown interest in before. Cause and effect. relationships, the inner lives of others. Rex eats special dog food, Sarah explained, her voice shaking with joy. He lives with Officer Jake, the nice policeman right there. And yes, Rex had a mommy when he was a puppy, just like you have a mommy. Emma processed this information, her small face serious. Then she looked at Jake for the first time, making brief but definite eye contact. "Thank you for Rex." Jake lost it completely. The hardened police officer who'd faced armed criminals without flinching crumbled under the weight of a 3-year-old's gratitude. He sat down hard on the concrete, not trusting his legs anymore, and buried his face in his hands. Sergeant Williams put a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Morrison, let it out." "I don't understand," Jake managed between sobs. "I don't understand what's happening. Rex has never been like this. I've tried for 3 years to get him to connect with kids and he never would. Why now? Why her?" Officer Chen knelt beside him. Maybe he was waiting for someone who needed him as much as he needed them. Maybe he recognized something in her that we can't see. Emma, seemingly oblivious to the emotional devastation she was causing in the adults around her, continued her conversation with Rex. She was telling him about her stuffed dog now, the one that still lay forgotten in the stroller 20 feet away. "I have Doggy at home," she explained to Rex, her small hand resting on his head. "But not real, fake Doggy, you real Doggy, better." Rex's tail thumped against the ground in agreement. The crowd had gone silent, everyone straining to hear Emma's small voice. A few people were crying openly. Others held hands with strangers, bound together by shared witness to something transcendent. By the time Emma and Rex finally separated, Emma's small body showing signs of exhaustion, her newfound voice growing quieter, 17 different people had recorded the encounter on their phones. Within 30 minutes, the first video appeared on TikTok with the caption, "Nonverbal autistic girl speaks for the first time to police dog. I'm sobbing." The video showed the exact moment Emma said "doggy," captured Sarah's collapse to her knees, and Rex's gentle lowering of himself to Emma's level. The raw emotion was palpable even through a phone screen. The sound quality picked up every word, Emma's small, clear voice, Sarah's gasping sobs, and even Jake's radio call requesting tissues. Within 2 hours, that first video had 50,000 views. By dinner time, it had crossed 2 million. By midnight, it had exploded across every major social media platform: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. The video had been shared, stitched, reposted, and commented on by millions of people across the globe. Sarah Chen sat on her couch at 11 o'clock that night, her phone buzzing continuously with notifications. Emma finally asleep in her bedroom after the most extraordinary day of both their lives. The little girl had talked all the way home in the car, asking questions, nomming objects, expressing thoughts that had apparently been locked inside her for 3 years. "Mommy car, going home, Emma tired, want Rex come home too." Each sentence had made Sarah cry fresh tears until she'd had to pull over twice because she couldn't see through the blur. She'd called Emma's speech therapist, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had listened in stunned silence before whispering, "In 15 years of practice, I've never heard of a breakthrough this complete, this sudden. Sarah, this is unprecedented." Now, watching her phone explode with notifications, Sarah began to understand the magnitude of what had happened. The video with the most views, now approaching 3 million, had 20,000 comments. "I'm a special education teacher, and I'm sobbing. This is why we never give up on these kids. My son is non-verbal autistic. I've been trying for 5 years. This video gives me so much hope." The way that police dog knew, animals understand things we can't. This is pure magic. "I don't cry at videos, but I'm bawling. That mother's reaction destroyed me." Faith in humanity restored. Look at how gentle that massive dog is with her. Sarah's personal Facebook account had somehow been found. She'd made exactly 3 posts in the past year, all of them private. And now she had 847 friend requests and hundreds of messages clogging her inbox. Please tell me how this happened. My daughter is also nonverbal. What therapy were you using? My son needs help. Can we bring our child to meet this dog? Your story is giving families like mine hope. Thank you for sharing. Her phone rang. A 303 area code, Denver. Sarah answered hesitantly. Mrs. Chen, this is Amanda Martinez from Channel 7 News. We'd love to interview you and Emma about what happened today. The story is resonating with people all across the country. Sarah hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Different number. She declined the call. 3 more calls came in rapid succession. She turned off the ringer and sat in the sudden silence of her living room, trying to process. Her daughter had spoken. That was the only thing that mattered. Emma, who had been trapped in silence, had found her voice. The rest, the videos, the media, the attention, was noise. But it was loud noise. By morning, the video had been featured on Good Morning America's website. A producer from the Today Show had emailed. CNN had run a segment during their early morning broadcast. The Denver Police Department's public information officer, overwhelmed by media requests, had released a brief statement confirming the incident and asking for privacy for the family. Jake Morrison's phone had suffered a similar fate. He'd silenced it around midnight after the 50th call from a reporter. His captain had called him at 7 in the morning for an emergency meeting. Morrison, you're about to become the most famous cop in America, Captain Davis had said, not unkindly. That video has 15 million views across all platforms now. We're getting calls from national media, international media, dog training organizations, autism advocacy groups, and about 500 families asking if they can bring their kids to meet Rex. Jake had sat in his captain's office, still trying to process. Sir, I don't understand what happened. Rex has never been like that. I've tried. I know what you've tried, Davis interrupted. I've read your reports about his difficulty with community engagement. What I'm saying is that something changed yesterday. And whether we understand it or not, we need to figure out how to respond. Because this isn't going away. The captain pulled up a news article on his computer and turned the monitor toward Jake. The headline read, Police Dog's Extraordinary Connection Helps Nonverbal Child Speak. Video Goes Viral. The article had quotes from autism specialists, animal behaviorists, and disability advocates, all trying to explain what had happened. None of them could, not really. They used words like unprecedented, remarkable, and scientifically interesting. But beneath the academic language was simple wonder. What do you want me to do? Jake asked. I want you and Rex to go visit Emma Chen this afternoon, Davis said. Her mother called our non-emergency line this morning. Emma hasn't stopped asking for Rex. She's been talking non-stop, full sentences now, and every third sentence is about her Rex. The mother is overwhelmed but grateful. She wants to thank you in person. Jake felt his throat tighten. We'll go, of course we'll go. And Morrison, be prepared. This is going to change both your lives. That video isn't just viral, it's cultural. It's giving hope to thousands of families who have nonverbal children. Whether you're ready or not, you and Rex just became symbols of something bigger than a police K-9 unit. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Jake pulled his patrol SUV up to a modest ranch house in a middle-class neighborhood. Before he could even open his door, he heard a child's voice shrieking from inside the house. Rex is here. Mommy, Rex came, he came back. The front door burst open and Emma Chen appeared, no longer the silent, disconnected child from yesterday. Her face was animated, alive with excitement and joy. She actually ran with coordination and purpose, down the driveway toward the SUV. Sarah appeared in the doorway behind her, laughing and crying simultaneously. Emma, wait for Officer Jake to get Rex out. Emma, sweetie, slow down. But Emma couldn't slow down. Jake quickly opened the back of the SUV, and Rex leaped out, his tail already wagging before his paws hit the pavement. The reunion was explosive. Rex, Emma threw her small arms around the dog's neck. I missed Rex. Rex came back. I love Rex. Jake stood frozen, his hand still on the SUV door. Emma had just used the word love, a complex emotional concept that most nonverbal autistic children struggled to understand, let alone express. Rex was doing his play bow, tail wagging furiously, making small yipping sounds Jake had never heard from him before. The professional police dog had vanished entirely, replaced by something Jake never thought possible, a dog in love with a child. Sarah reached Jake, her face streaked with happy tears. She's been talking since we woke up, full sentences, questions, observations. She told me she was hungry. She asked about her stuffed animals by name. She said, Sarah's voice broke. She said, I love you, Mommy, this morning, first time ever. Jake found himself crying again, the second time in 24 hours after 8 years of maintaining professional composure. Mrs. Chen, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep visiting, Sarah whispered. Because whatever happened yesterday, whatever connection exists between your dog and my daughter, it's not finished. It's just beginning. In the days following the encounter, the video of Emma and Rex became more than just viral content. It became a movement. The Denver Police Department switchboard was overwhelmed with hundreds of calls daily. Parents from every state, some from other countries, reached out with desperate hope in their voices. My son hasn't spoken in 5 years. Could he meet Rex? We've tried everything. Please, can your dog help my daughter? I saw the video and cried for an hour. My grandson is autistic. Is there any way? Captain Davis assembled an emergency task force to handle the response. The small conference room at Denver PD headquarters became command central for what everyone was now calling the Rex effect. We're getting 200 emails an hour, the public information officer reported, scrolling through her laptop with exhausted eyes. News outlets from Japan, UK, Australia, Brazil, everyone wants the story. But more importantly, we're getting messages from autism organizations, special needs schools, and therapy centers asking if this is replicable. They want to know if other dogs can do what Rex did. Jake sat at the table, Rex lying at his feet. The German Shepherd seemed different now, calmer, more content, as if finding Emma had filled some empty space inside him that Jake never knew existed. I don't know if it's replicable, Jake admitted. I still don't understand why Rex connected with Emma specifically. He'd never shown interest in children before. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a child psychologist specializing in autism who'd volunteered her expertise, leaned forward. I've been reviewing the video frame by frame and consulting with colleagues nationwide. What we witnessed was extraordinary, a complete breakthrough in verbal communication triggered by animal interaction. But here's what's interesting. Rex didn't just trigger speech. He triggered engagement, eye contact, emotional reciprocity, and social awareness. That's not just a dog being friendly. That's therapeutic intervention at the highest level. So other dogs could do this? Captain Davis asked. Potentially, Dr. Mitchell replied carefully. Animal-assisted therapy has shown promising results with autistic children for years. But what Rex achieved, the immediacy and completeness of Emma's breakthrough, that's unprecedented in the literature. However, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to recreate the conditions. Even if other children show a fraction of Emma's progress, it would be life-changing. Jake's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. He glanced at it and felt his heart swell. It was a video of Emma reading a children's book aloud, actually reading, sounding out words, engaged with the story. The text read, Week 2, 20 new words today. Her therapist is in shock. Thank you will never be enough. 20 new words. In a single day. A child who hadn't spoken for 3 years was now expanding her vocabulary faster than some typically developing children. Emma's progress hasn't stopped, Jake told the room, holding up his phone. She's reading now. Her mother says she's asking questions constantly, wants to know how everything works, talks about Rex every single day. Whatever happened at that park, it didn't just give her speech. It unlocked her entire cognitive engagement with the world. Dr. Mitchell nodded. That's consistent with what we're learning about autism. It's not that the cognitive ability isn't there. It's that the pathways to express it are blocked. Emma needed a key to unlock those pathways. Rex was that key. Then we need to find more keys, Captain Davis declared. Morrison, how many K-9s do we have in the department? 12, sir, but most are trained for specific police work, narcotics, explosives, patrol. They're not therapy dogs. Could they be both? The question hung in the air. It challenged every assumption about what police dogs were supposed to be: single purpose, professional, intimidating, but Rex had proven those assumptions wrong. I think, Jake said slowly, we need to try. 3 weeks later, the Denver Police Department announced the K-9 Connections program, a groundbreaking initiative pairing trained police dogs with special needs children. The program would start small, with carefully selected dogs and families, supervised by licensed therapists and animal behavior specialists. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 48 hours, 347 families had applied to participate. The waiting list stretched into the hundreds. Dr. Mitchell and her team developed protocols. Not every police dog would be suitable. They needed specific temperaments, extensive additional training, and careful monitoring. Of the 12 K-9s in Denver's department, only 5 qualified for the dual certification program. But 5 was a start. Rex naturally became the program's flagship. He was certified as a therapy dog while maintaining his police duties, a first for Colorado law enforcement. Jake's schedule transformed overnight. Mornings were for police work. Afternoons were for therapy visits. Emma remained Rex's primary client. Their bond had only deepened. Every Thursday, Jake and Rex spent 2 hours at Emma's home. The little girl would prepare for their visits like other children prepared for Christmas, laying out toys to show Rex, practicing new words to say to him, drawing pictures of him with crayons that she'd eagerly present like priceless gifts. "Look, Rex," Emma would shout as they arrived. "I drew you. You have big ears and a tail and 4 legs, and you're black, and you're my best friend." Her vocabulary had exploded to over 500 words. She was forming complex sentences. She'd started at a special needs preschool where, for the first time, she'd played with other children. She'd made a friend, a little boy named Marcus who also loved dogs. But it wasn't just Emma. Over the following months, the K-9 Connections program served 47 children with various special needs: autism, selective mutism, developmental delays, trauma-related disorders. The results varied, but they were universally positive. A 5-year-old boy with selective mutism spoke to his parents for the first time after 3 sessions, with a Labrador retriever named Duke. A 7-year-old girl with severe social anxiety began making eye contact with humans after bonding with a golden retriever named Honey. An 8-year-old boy on the autism spectrum, completely nonverbal like Emma had been, said his first word, dog, after meeting a German shepherd named Atlas. 12 children showed significant breakthroughs in verbal communication. 31 showed improved social engagement. All 47 showed reduced anxiety and increased emotional regulation during and after sessions with the dogs. The program's success attracted national attention. Police departments in Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, and Miami reached out to Denver for guidance in establishing their own programs. The model was spreading. Academic researchers requested permission to study the program. Articles appeared in psychology journals, veterinary medicine publications, and law enforcement magazines. TED Talk invitations arrived. Documentary filmmakers wanted access. But for Jake, The only statistic that mattered was Emma Chen. 6 months after their first meeting, Emma spoke in full paragraphs, attended regular preschool with an aide, had playmates, and told elaborate stories about adventures she imagined having with Rex. She was still autistic, she always would be, but she was engaged with the world in ways that had seemed impossible. "You gave me my daughter," Sarah told Jake one Thursday afternoon, watching Emma and Rex play in the backyard. "I'd accepted I might never really know her, and now I know everything about her. Her favorite color is purple. She wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. She's afraid of thunderstorms but brave about going to the doctor. She thinks broccoli is yucky and strawberries are the most delicious thing in the world. I know her, Jake. Because of you and Rex, I know my own child." Jake couldn't speak. He just nodded, throat too tight for words. 6 months after a 3-year-old girl looked at a police dog and found her voice, Emma Chen celebrated her 4th birthday with a party that would have been impossible just half a year earlier. 20 children from her preschool class ran through the backyard, their laughter filling the autumn air. Emma stood in the middle of the chaos, directing activities like a tiny general, her voice confident and clear. "No, Sophie, the red balloons go over there. Marcus, you can be on my team. Everybody, Rex is coming soon and we have to be ready." Sarah Chen watched from the patio, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. 6 months ago, Emma had never spoken. Now she was hosting a birthday party, managing social dynamics, expressing preferences, and anticipating future events. The transformation was so complete that sometimes Sarah had to look at old videos to remind herself it had really happened, that her daughter had truly been silent for 3 years. Emma's therapist had called it the most remarkable case of breakthrough therapy she'd witnessed in her career. The neurologist who'd given Emma's prognosis had requested permission to present her case at a medical conference. Researchers from 3 universities wanted to study her continued development. But Sarah didn't care about the academic significance. She cared that her daughter had asked that morning, "Mommy, do you think Rex will like my birthday cake? It has peanut butter because that's what dogs like, right?" A patrol SUV pulled up at exactly 2 o'clock. Jake Morrison was nothing if not punctual. Emma's shriek of joy pierced the air. "He's here, Rex is here. Everybody, Rex came to my party." The children stampeded toward the driveway as Jake opened the back of the vehicle. Rex emerged, wearing a special vest that read "Therapy Dog" on one side and "Police K9" on the other. His dual role had become a symbol of the program's success, proof that strength and gentleness weren't opposites but complementary forces. Emma reached Rex first, throwing her arms around his neck with the familiarity of deep friendship. "Happy birthday to me, Rex. I'm 4 now, that's 1 more than 3, I'm bigger." Rex's tail wagged with such enthusiasm his entire back half moved. Jake watched with a smile that had become permanent over the past 6 months. This right here, was why he'd become a police officer, not for the arrests or the recognition, but for moments that changed lives. The party was chaotic and joyful. Rex played gentle games with the children, his professional training ensuring he never got too rough. Emma showed him off proudly, introducing him to each child individually. "This is my best friend Rex. He's a police dog and a therapy dog. He helped me learn to talk. He's the most special dog in the whole world." Later, as the party wound down and parents collected their exhausted, sugar-filled children, Jake found Sarah sitting on the porch steps. "She's incredible," he said, sitting beside her. 6 months ago." "I know," Sarah interrupted softly. "I was there. Sometimes I still can't believe it. I wake up and hear her talking to her stuffed animals in her room and I start crying because it's real. She's really here with me now, not trapped anymore." They watched Emma and Rex together in the yard. The little girl was telling the dog an elaborate story about a princess and a dragon, complete with dramatic gestures and voice changes for different characters. Rex sat attentively, his eyes following her movements as if he understood every word. "The program hit 50 kids last week," Jake told her. 50 children with special needs who have worked with our K9s. We've had 14 significant breakthroughs, kids speaking for the first time, severe anxiety cases showing massive improvement, trauma survivors beginning to engage again. None as dramatic as Emma's, but all meaningful, all life-changing for those families. Because of what happened in the park that day, Sarah said. Because Emma saw something in Rex that no one else had seen. Because Rex saw something in Emma that he'd been waiting for. I don't pretend to understand it, but I'm grateful for it every single day. The Denver Police Department had received the Governor's Community Service Award for the K9 Connections program. National media had covered their success story repeatedly. 7 other states had implemented similar programs using Denver's model. The initial viral video had been viewed over 50 million times across all platforms. But the real success wasn't measured in views or awards. It was measured in moments like this, a birthday party that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Jake's radio crackled. "Morrison, we need K9 assistance at a potential narcotics situation on Colfax and Vine." He keyed the radio. En route in 10 minutes. He looked at Rex and gave the signal. The German Shepherd's demeanor immediately shifted. The gentle therapy dog transformed into the alert, professional police K9. But now Jake understood what he hadn't before. Rex wasn't 2 different dogs. He was one complete dog who'd finally found all the pieces of himself. Emma ran over, sensing the change. "Rex has to go do police work now." "That's right, sweetheart. Rex has to go keep people safe." Emma's face grew serious. She knelt down and took Rex's face in her small hands, exactly as she'd done that first day. "Be careful, Rex. Come back safe. I love you." Rex nuzzled her gently, then followed Jake to the SUV with professional purpose. As they drove away, Jake glanced in the rearview mirror. Emma stood in her driveway, waving with both hands, calling out words that would have been impossible 6 months ago. "Bye, Rex. Bye, Officer Jake. See you Thursday." "You know what the captain told me yesterday," Jake said to Rex, who was already scanning the streets ahead. "He said before you and Emma, people saw police dogs as tools, weapons, equipment. But now they see you as healers, as bridges, as proof that strength can be gentle and power can be kind." Rex's ears twitched, acknowledging Jake's words. "You changed everything, buddy. That little girl changed everything, and I get to be part of it. How lucky am I?" They arrived at the scene and Rex went to work, focused, professional, excellent. But Jake knew that Thursday would come, and Rex would transform again into the gentle giant who helped children find their voices. Later that evening, the photo that Sarah posted to social media showed Emma and Rex nose to nose, the birthday girl whispering secrets to her best friend. The caption read, "6 months ago, my daughter was silent. Today she talked for 3 hours straight at her birthday party. This dog didn't just help her find her voice, he helped her find herself." Forever grateful for the day Emma looked at Rex and everything changed. Rex Effect K9 Connections, miracles happen. The post received 89,000 likes and was shared 12,000 times. But in Emma's bedroom that night, as Sarah tucked her in, Emma said something that wouldn't be shared on social media. Something private and precious and perfect. "Mommy, before I met Rex, I had words inside, but they were stuck. Rex unstuck them. Now they come out whenever I want. Isn't that the best magic ever?" Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, tears, happy tears, always happy tears now, sliding down her cheeks. "Yes, baby, that's the very best magic ever." Emma fell asleep clutching a photo of Rex, her lips moving silently, practicing words she'd used to greet him on Thursday. In a house across town, Jake Morrison sat on his couch, Rex's head in his lap, and thought about purpose. About how you could search your whole life for meaning and have it find you in the most unexpected way. About how a 3-year-old girl and an all-business police dog had taught an entire city, an entire country, about connection, healing, and the extraordinary things that happen when 2 souls recognize each other. The moment when Emma had looked at Rex and spoken her first word had lasted perhaps 3 seconds. The impact would last forever. The end.